Welcome to another beautiful day in the land of music. My name is Douglas, and in today's video, I want to walk you through a 2025 updated comparison between the Yamaha YC and the Nord Stage 4. I'm going to get both of these turning on, and I've got the Yamaha YC88 and the Nord Stage 4 Hammer Action 88 in front of me. I love both of these. This is not sponsored. I actually bought both of these years ago, and I've spent a considerable amount of time with both of them. I've played both live, and I've done a lot of videos on both of these on my channel. So if you're curious on how to use them, go check those out. Find the different playlists for the YC and the Nord Stage 4. But let's jump right into this and talk about a couple of key things that have changed since I did a comparison in 2023. Hard to believe it was that long ago, but yes, there have been some changes, mostly on the Yamaha YC side. So over the last year or so, Yamaha has been putting effort into updating the YC, which is amazing because you spend the money, it's an investment, you want to see it continually updating. Nord does that. They do bug fixes, little feature changes, and they release new sounds. But since the release of the Nord Stage 4, nothing really big or monumental has come out in terms of sounds, but because the Yamaha YC kind of fell short in my last comparison, at least to my ears, I wanted to do an update. So there's two areas on the Yamaha YC. The organ, they've added a new model, the H4, and then the pianos, we now have the CFX2. So I want to compare those with the Nord Stage 4 from a sound perspective, and then give you my updated 2025 take on which one of these is a better buy and give you some inputs on helping you make the decision if you're trying to figure out which one do you buy with today's economy and our budgets the way they are, which one is best for you. So let's start with the piano. On the Yamaha YC, I have the FC3A sustain pedal plugged in. That's the one that comes with it. And then the Nord Stage 4, I have the triple pedal 2 plugged in. And then from an output perspective, stereo out of both 1/4 inch into my DAW where I'm recording just the raw audio, no post-processing effects or anything like that. I am gonna just play you a little bit of the CFX2, which is the new piano on the Yamaha. Then we'll play the White Grand here. Then I'm gonna take all the effects off and just go raw samples so you can get a taste for what that sounds like. So this is a CFX2 if we do a little bit of maybe the New York State of Mind intro. Keep from getting a copyright. I kind of transitioned out of New York State of Mind, but that is a beautiful sample. They've added some more just realism and character into that sound that I find it more inspiring than I did the CFX1. So coming down on the Nord Stage 4, I have a simple White Grand called up. And just to be fair, we'll put a little reverb on there. Beautiful sample in its own right, and you may find that I'm a little biased through this. Nord is my go-to, even though I'm not sponsored by Nord. It is my favorite in terms of the piano samples, but I think Yamaha has come a long way, especially with this CFX2. So let's do a little bit of raw sound comparison. I'm going to turn the reverb off, and I'm going to turn the reverb off in the Nord. trying to get the volumes somewhat the same here, so I'm going to back the Nord off a little bit. Maybe I backed it off a little too much. And let's just do some low running up to the high on the Nord. I like to do a little bit of playing notes without holding the sustain pedal and see what the resonance is between those notes you're playing. So I'm going to play just some notes here, same notes on the Nord, trying to replicate exactly what I'm playing without talking in between so you guys can compare. I'm going to do a bit of a sustaining. I'm going to hold the sustain pedal and hit a couple of notes just so you can hear the sustain. Long sustain on the Yamaha. It was still continuing, you could hear it a little bit. So now I'm going to hold the sustain pedal and just hit some notes together to see about that string resonance. Little test I like to do in the middle. I'm going to bring the reverb back and we're just going to do something small, 20 for a depth. And then I think that's similar. So I like to be in the middle range here. Just a note, I don't have any master equalizer or equalizer on either of these keyboards. bounce back's a little bit slower for the keys. But I've said this before, and the Yamaha does have a heavier action. We've got the wooden keys. The Nord is a bit more utility. So let's transition to the organ. I feel like we've spent a bit of time with the piano here. So on the organ, let's go ahead and turn reverb off on both of these. And I'm going to turn the piano section off, and we're going to bring the organ section on. Now, a couple of things here. So we're going to make sure we're on the H4. And we're going to turn on the rotary speaker. Let's go with a simple jazz setup here on both of these. So the first 3 drawbars. We have slow speed on both. And then on the H4 preset, it starts off with a little bit of drive in there. We're going to pull that back because there's no drive on the Nord. So we're going to go no drive, and then we'll bring that in a little bit here. Make sure my volumes match. I have vibrato and chorus off, percussion off on both of these. The B3 tone wheel vintage 2 setting on the Nord, H4 on the YC. I'm going to play a little bit here. No reverb or anything like that. So let's now do the Leslie slow to fast. I'm gonna put both on fast, give you a taste of that. Now let's bring a little bit of drive in. I'm gonna go with maybe a 50 on the speaker amp drive there, and then maybe a 3.5. It's a great sounding organ. Let's bring in some other drawbars. So I'm going to start with the 3, and then I'm going to bring those in. that, I'll say they did a great job with that H4 preset. And do maybe a little scoop here. We'll bring our third back. There we go. Let's bring in a little percussion, a little bit of C3 chorus. Do the same over here, C3. Wow, you be the judge of that. I'm excited to compare this with the Viscount Legend 1, see how those compare, and even the Roland V Stage, so maybe some upcoming videos there. But let's talk overall on value. Now that we have a better organ and a better piano, I would say my biggest two gripes with the Yamaha YC in the past comparison was I felt like the piano sound was a little uninspiring. So if we go back to, if we flip back to our, maybe this one is it. So let's go to the CFX1. I felt like this was a little uninspiring. I know a lot of people like it. It's just a little in your face. And you could do adjustments and make it softer, and I definitely did that. But compared to the White Grand here, it felt like a toy. Now with the CFX2, it's got more character, it inspires me a little bit more. I still prefer the pianos on the Nord Stage 4, but I at least will pick up the Yamaha and play it a little bit more now, which is great. When it comes to that organ, I would say that the H4 on the YC, that's an amazing organ. I don't know which I like better. They've got their own little characteristics to them. So I'm still undecided which one I like better there, but it definitely competes a little bit better with that compared to the previous comparison. Now, the other gripe I had was space. So there were only 20 live set pages on the YC, and like 17 of them were taken up by factory live sets. Now, yes, you could go delete them, but anytime you did an update, it would reload all of them. You have to reload your custom live sets. It's a pain. So they recently, in version 2, they basically doubled the amount of live set pages. So there's a ton of open pages in here for your own presets. And yeah, it comes with 19 now as part of OS 2, 19 pages of presets from the factory, which is great. They're great starting points. But I felt like that was a little limiting before, and now you've got more possible locations for your own custom presets or live sets. So that's great. I love that they improved that. They've added some effects, things like that. Nord has as well, or they've adjusted some things there. So kind of a tie in there. I'd say overall, if we just do a really quick feature comparison on these, a couple of benefits on the YC is you get the XLR outs compared to 1/4 inch. You get 1/4 inch on both, but XLR outs, you don't need a DI on the YC. The audio interface, you can go direct USB from the audio of the keyboard to the computer. Can't do that on the Nord. And then the keys on this, if you're really down with that heavier feel, the wooden keys, just great. They have texture to them, just like a real grand piano. They're sharp though, so keep that in mind. I wouldn't get the 88 if you're gonna do a lot of synth or organ playing. It's just too sharp and heavy for that. So go with one of the other versions. On the Nord Stage 4, for example, I actually do play synth and organ on the 88 because it's a little bit lighter, rounder corners on the keys, and it's a bit more of a utility keypad, as I've said in many videos in the past. So advantages there, I would say things on the Stage 4 that are advantages are the pitch, knuckle, and modulation wheel. I don't like the little sticks, the joystick things on the Yamaha. And the overall just feature set of the Stage 4, it starts to set itself apart when it comes to things like your splitting, morphing of controls, your ability to layer a lot more. So on the YC, we have 2 organ layers. We can either split them or switch between the 2 drawbar setups. Basically the same thing on the Nord Stage 4, but then when it comes to our keys, we have 2 layers here. So we can choose piano and synth, or 2 pianos. Basically we can, fill out those 2 layers however we want. Whereas we have 2 piano layers and then 3 synth layers. So basically adding 3 layers into the mix that we can use for synths and samples, and then of course the 2 piano layers. When it comes to effects, the Nord Stage 4 is also more powerful. We have our full effects section that can apply individually to each of our layers. Whereas on the YC, we have the master EQ, which is great. But then the reverb, we have to pick which send we want that to go to, all or one of our, organ or keys A or keys B. Speaker, amp, effect, same thing. The effect insert slot here, same thing. So we have basically 3 inserts compared to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the Stage 4. And then within the piano section, we do have a couple of insert effects there as well. So you can kind of, per layer, you have 2 effects inserts for each of your keys A and B, but then you don't have that over on the organ. So again, not as powerful when it comes to building sounds and the effects and some of the functionality, but a solid keyboard. And I would say, when you're looking at this from the price point of where these sit, I haven't looked up the YC in a while, but I know the Nord is right around the 6K mark. For the one I have, I would assume the YC is somewhere around half that, maybe in the 3s somewhere. And so when you look at it from that, you're getting twice the value, and it depends on what you need. I definitely leverage the functionality that the Stage 4 has that the YC doesn't. So for me, it is worth it to have the Stage 4. A lot of the functionality that I use in a live context, switching, setting up my sounds, doing my splits, my layers, I really love all of that on the Stage 4. The YC, if you're just piano, if you're just organ, simpler sounds, and you're not trying to do a bunch of fancy stuff, the YC is a solid keyboard, great sounds. And I would say when it comes to some of our other sounds here, you get into some of the saxophone and stuff like that, violin. That's not a violin. If we go and try to find, I just passed a violin right there. And we do the same thing here. You're gonna find that the samples, I feel like Yamaha does a really good job with some of their, see if I can even find a solo string sound here. I may not have any. There's not even a great violin. It's a bad comparison there, but even on some of the brass solo, if I pull up a trumpet here, and even the saxophone. I'm getting off track here, but our saxophone here, it depends on what you're looking for. That's a great saxophone sound. Anyway, I'm getting lost in the weeds here, but to wrap this all up, I would say, for me, the Nord Stage 4 is still where it's at. The piano, I feel, is still a little better. It is missing some of those inputs, outputs that the Yamaha has, but it does have some additional things, some more control pedals and things like that. So when it comes to building sounds and the feature set, I would say the Stage 4 is the overall winner. I would say when it comes to sounds, I would pull a draw on the organs. The electric pianos are good in both of them. The pianos, I think, leaning better on the Stage 4 still. And then some of your other samples outside of your synth. Now, you do have some good synth sounds here, but you don't have the full synthesizer capabilities that you have on the Stage 4. So huge benefit to the Stage 4 if you want to do some of those analog modeling type of stuff there. So that's going to be where it's at. Or building complex sounds with effects, Stage 4 is going to be the winner there. So hopefully this gives you an idea of a comparison of the H4 organ, the B3 or the tone wheel organ, and then the CFX2 piano, how they compare to the Stage 4. I think the Yamaha YC is absolutely a relevant keyboard in 2025. And I think it's going to come down to what you need a keyboard for, what you need a digital piano for, what your particular use is, and whether or not you're going to miss some of the extra features that the Stage 4 has that the YC doesn't. That's going to be maybe what tips the scale one way or another for you. If you have any questions about what I went over in this video, feel free to throw those down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, stay inspired, and keep making that music.